Hello, thank you very much for checking out What Was That? My name is John. I am the sole human responsible for this 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days a year running radio station. You can listen via whatwasthatradio.com. If you were to go to the app tab, you will see Alexa skills to get set up, your free Google or your free Android is what I should have said instead, Apple download as well for your phone. Just putting it out there. What Was That is a radio station built around new music discovery and big time after my 10 years here in Canada, based on Vancouver, Ireland, around Canadian artists. And I've got to know this next gentleman the last 10 years, and it's a relationship that I adore and I'm so grateful to have with Ali. So, what is the next hour about? It's a conversation, unedited, that we had yesterday. We're going to dive straight in. And after that, straight in, and I'll say straight in a third time in quick succession, to the Naoist EP that I think is flipping brilliant. I go live from my bachelor pad weekdays between 10 and 4 PST. And if you like what you hear the next hour and you're new to me, I cannot thank you enough for trying it out and supporting Ali and his music. And in turn, if you feel like supporting me, go to whatwasthatradio.com. You'll find all the details there. Oh, let's get to this chat, Ali.
Hey, brother.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm great. I'm adulting really well today. You were 3 minutes early calling me and I had 2 minutes left of cooking pasta. So I was like rushing the last bit so I can eat after our conversation.
I knew I called you early, so that was my fault. Apologies.
Oh, you're so Canadian. No, it was, I had timed everything when you know, because you've worked your backside off for years. But for me, just recently jumping into this solo business adventure, every little detail, I used to joke about my sister saying, oh, I can squeeze you in for half an hour WhatsApp. And I was like, oh, yeah. But now I realize I was cooking pasta right until you called me. And I was like, I'm 2 minutes away, man. And you're calling 3 minutes early. Let me wash my hands. So that's the backstory.
It's funny how we do that now, right? It's like, okay, yeah, you got your own business. You're working for yourself. It's like every minute is taken up.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, fortunately for me, it's something that I just adore, which is connecting with people, building community and searching out music. And I also don't really sleep very much. So yeah, it's fantastic so far.
Well, you're good at all the things you mentioned.
Thank you.
So it should be that way. You're a lucky man to get to do what you love for a living. And at the same time, I know it's a struggle, especially when you're starting something new. It's a world of unknown. So that's very brave of you.
For me, it just felt like my gut just said, now's got to be the time. I'd planned on being sort of a John Peel in my 40th or 50th year of existence, not my 33rd, and having that studio on the farm in the middle of nowhere. And now I'm downtown in a bachelor pad, doing it myself a bit early, just due to sometimes connections don't click and growth isn't had in a certain way that the individual would like. And so my family lost everything a long time ago, and sometimes you just got to throw yourself at it. And I felt now was the time to do it. The world's changing. Let's reset together.
Good call, man.
Yeah.
Well said.
So first question, how on earth, because I feel that I have pronounced your surname wrong for the last 10 years, so I don't want to get your flipping side project name wrong as well. How am I pronouncing this? Naoist?
Naoist.
Oh, flip. I should have let you speak first. Say it
What
again.
do you mean? It's Naoist.
Naoist.
Like Taoist. The ism of now.
Okay, so what's the context behind it?
Well, like behind the name or behind like the approach to music?
Flipping heck, let's just dive in the pool. The name, the adventure, the expression, the whole lot.
You know, I like all musicians, you know, you kind of, we're all like in some way imagining some kind of beautiful music that we want to make. Usually it's sometime in the future. Man, I want to be good enough to do this. I'd love to be able to create this kind of musical experience. So, I don't know. One day I bought a better computer about 6 or 7 years ago and, started paying more attention to my friends that were producers and into electronics and just tried to make things that I liked. I mean, the intention in the beginning was really to try and contribute more to the musical explorations of Mother Mother, to try and make new sounds and just do cool shit that would eventually inspire a new song with that band or make its way into a song, or just so that I can contribute more than drums, you know? And then I just kind of found myself like making my own stuff just for the joy of it.
I remember being.
And that was it.
That's. I remember being. We've had this conversation many years ago, and the first part of it for me, I remember. I feel like it's 8 years ago. I was in your jam spot. You weren't there. It was myself, Ryan, and Jasmine, and we were talking. And Ryan was showing me some new pedal boards. Skip forward a year when you're all in the studio in Victoria on the Island, and I was saying to you, "Oh, you've expanded with this Roland," and I forget, excuse me, the sample pad. And you and Ryan both jumped into, well, yeah, we're trying to push ourselves here to try and find exactly what you just said, new avenues, new directions. And what intrigues me then is, was it just the spark of, oh, I've got a new computer and technology is advancing, let's dive in? Or was there a certain song, or was there a certain moment beyond the computer?
You know, it really didn't have that much to do with the computer. It was just fortuitous that I had a new computer at that time.
You see why I ask?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think it's kind of one of those things that lives under the surface for most musicians, especially people in my position, where you're sort of an auxiliary musician in a band that has a chief songwriter who is the creative force. And so in that sense, there's usually not as much crazy pressure on me to go away and create something totally original. The real pressure on me in that situation is to contribute creatively to try and nurture the growth of these little creative sparks that come from the chief songwriter. But I mean, even as a child, you know, listening to music, and I know for sure you're a musician too. You kind of always think, man, I'd love to just create something of my own. There's always you've always got your own way of hearing music, your own little things that you love about the music that moves you and becomes such a big part of your life. And I think we're all inspired to kind of create something that lives up to that measures up to that, even if it's just for ourselves, to go like, I want to make something that I find beautiful, that other people find beautiful, and they smile and they dance, and, you know, we can share it together. So, yeah, I think that kind of came to a head when I had a music career and time and creative inspiration around me, especially with people like Ryan from Mother Mother, where it's like, you know, that guy is like, he is a prolific fountain of creativity, like nobody else I've ever met. And it's very, it's very enabling for an aspiring artist to be around, because you feel like, hey, I can just do anything. This guy makes music out of, like, you know, recording cars passing by. It's like, that's how easy it can be if you allow yourself to be inspired and you put the time in.
I think a lot of time people are so worried about what others might think that they lose sight of their entire identity in the first place and the fun that can come with the creation behind it. There's no growth in just standing still, and there's no growth in being intimidated by others, because it's like looking at what I'm doing right now, and many people, because I don't like to talk about you, I'll talk about me, because it wouldn't make me comfortable to do so in this sort of instance, which is people look at this self-radio station situation and they think, oh, so it's sort of like a Twitch. Now there's millions of people out there trying to do it. Well, what's the difference here? But if you just succumb to the pressure of the unknown, then you'll never even know what those grounds in between that are so exciting and growthful could potentially be, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't know until you try. And you don't really try until you feel free enough to try openly, you know, to be vulnerable. To go like, okay, maybe nobody will like this, but maybe I'll find something that I like, and that's okay. And just follow that spark by yourself all the way. I mean, one of the things that I liked about this name of the artist that I chose was that it kind of speaks to the fact that whatever I do in this music is not really genre based. I don't have like a plan. I don't know what kind of mold I'm going to fit. I'm just doing what I'm doing right now because it feels good. It sounds good right now. I'm going to be present in this moment, make some sounds, and try and carve them into a beautiful shape. And I think you're absolutely right. It's very easy to get lost in the fear of not being good enough, in the fear of being just ignored, overlooked, or not even liking something yourself. I think that's kind of the worst thing. Is like you you're scared of making something that embarrasses you. At least that was the thing for me, you know. And getting over that was huge. Being able to like take criticism, being able to see truly what when I played stuff for other people, what they really liked and what they didn't like, and being willing to accept that completely openly and take it in and say, you know what you don't like doesn't really matter to me because I really like this and I'm going to go even further with it. Or you might turn around and say, you know what, I've grown now enough to be secure in the fact that what you don't like about it is actually illuminating something that I don't like about it either. And I'm okay with like changing that or letting that go or growing in that realm in order to make something that I do really like in a much deeper way.
The two things that come to my mind in this moment is the first one, did you start on drums? I don't think I've ever asked you what that first foray with music was as a young Ali. And the second one that brings it right back forward to in certain amount of years here, let's just say 21 years later. And with that now, what did you find? Because that's fascinating and it's an individual based situation. What did you find in those moments when you were showing? How long did it take to put this record together? And why did it take that time? Was it because there were these moments of self-reflection and self-doubt or self-secureness and bloody-mindedness and I'm going to do this no matter what, but I'm going to still adhere to the share from a friend? So I know that's kind of, I'm trying to figure the question out in my mind. Let me strip this back and stop taking too long. The first one is two parts. What was the first instrument and when that started this whole kickstart of your talent that is ferocious in my opinion? The second is how long did this process take with in mind what you just shared about the process thus far?
First of all, thanks for your kind words. I feel like I'm not worthy.
You're a clinic, but, man. As a drummer, you're a clinic. You're a walking, flipping clinic.
You're a very kind man and a good friend, John.
And your impressions are way better than mine. Your Scottish impression is way better than mine, but that's another story.
That is another story. I played guitar when I picked up the guitar for the first time, I think when I was probably 7 or 8. And I was never a great guitar player. You know what I mean? I never really felt like I was inspired enough or I was necessarily taught very well or I explored that instrument in the right sorts of ways. And then when I was adult, I started playing the drums. I was probably in my mid-20s when I started playing the drums. But I practiced ferociously back in those days. And I had my best friend growing up throughout my teenage years was a pro drummer. So I learned a lot by watching him play and by watching him grow and learn. So very quickly, I sort of knew the right things to focus on, and I shared with him a lot. And he was a real mentor for me in that realm, a really big inspiration. And so that's kind of when I went deep into drumming. And then, I guess it was during my early forays in drumming when I started getting into electronic music. But it wasn't your typical kind of like rave or dance sort of music when it came to electronic. It was much more kind of out there and artsy stuff like Amon Tobin or Bonobo.
I knew it.
Yeah, kind of stuff more in that realm that was exploratory and like always sort of every song was a different beast.
Yeah.
And then I guess when I started making electronic music, it was funny because I forgot sort of how much that stuff inspired me. And I had this false notion that if you're going to make electronic music, you really have to get to know your genre and be a part of that genre. Because everybody that's doing well in electronic music, they've they've got this sort of piece of that pie chart that they just sort of fit into. It's like, yes, it's like house, or it's trance, or it's this or it's that. And I never really got those things. So when I started exploring electronic music, I was literally just making sounds for the love of it. And I never really thought I was going to truly release anything in terms of a project until I got to this point, I guess, last year, where I thought, you know what, I've got a fairly decent body of work, and now it's growing into a style. So I'd like to put some of it out, and then just sort of just begin to grow a project and see where it goes. And I felt like putting it out was sort of the next logical step, because we kind of need to be pushed as humans in any realm of life, really, in order to get better. If you're not being properly pushed to your limits a little bit, I feel like you don't grow as much as you potentially can. And I was feeling like it was getting a bit too easy for me to stagnate. And it would be nice to just kind of get it out and be vulnerable to the world and share and kind of go into that next chapter of artistic growth. And it took from the first day, coming back to your question, from the first day that I started making electronic music to the day of this EP release, which is in the next 24 hours for me, it's been probably 6 years. Just like learning how to do it, learning how to make things sound good, like getting to a point with my compositions where I felt like I'm happy with them, where they felt mature enough to expose them to people, where I learned to sort of mix, which, as you know, like just mixing on its own is a true skill and art form unto itself.
That's a wonderful share. Thank you. Now the mixing thing, I remember I went to a performing arts school a while ago, and the things that I learned there from the music technology and media, and I obviously was mainly focused on musical theatre. Well, I say obviously. Well, no, I think my traits across the last 10 years would suggest to you that I definitely am a musical theatre dude. But everything is advanced.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Everything from Pro Tools to Photoshop and early Audition, when they brought out Cool Edit Pro, Adobe, like everything has advanced so much.
Oh yeah, Cool Edit Pro.
Remember that? Flipping heck, man.
That was my first one. Cool Edit Pro.
That is where I started making my demos. That was like the first program that I illegally downloaded. I now own Adobe. If you're listening, I now own the yearly plan and it's official. But way back when, I was like, damn, I need another key, Mum. And she's like, what does that even mean? I'm like, I don't even know. I just need a 12-digit number and some letters. Make something up. I've got to log back in. So just to make sure that I'm saying this right, then it's Naoist. Naoist. Flipping heck, man. I'm sorry. Yeah. Naoist. Okay.
No, it's all good. Telephone lines in the modern age, you'd think they were clearer.
Well, it's like I say COVID and my sister goes COVID.
Oh, COVID.
I was talking to my sister on WhatsApp actually yesterday, and I was saying, yeah, how's COVID for you? And she went, huh, you mean COVID? And I was like, oh, God.
Is that what they call it in Britain?
Well, she lives in Hong Kong, so I'm very confused. She's been there for 12 years, but I think it's just a very upper class British way of saying it, which is not to say that my family's upper class, but that she is in a situation that she needs to pronounce things. She's very high up in banking, so it's COVID. Moving on. Let's not get too. So with let's see if I can remember my short-term memory. Naoist.
Yep.
Thank F. So
you know what? I should have picked an easier name. It's my bad.
No, don't you dare apologize for your art. Don't start 24 hours before 6 hours. I don't know when your plan is, midnight or 9 a.m. Let me get back to you, though. Midnight. I have listened to this. I've listened to it with my partner lying down in that beautiful moon a few nights ago. I've listened to it cooking the pasta earlier. I've listened to it feeding the cats this morning. And I was going to sort of go through track by track, but I think this conversation has evolved so wonderfully that I'm going to hone in on a few that stuck out to me, which is obviously the opener with Forest. I wrote down awakening, running, and comfort. Those are just three things that came to me. I am not a runner. I don't like running. These are just words that came to me. And I find it interesting that you said Amon Tobin. I'll never forget my friend Matt Demos showing me Amon. This must be 20 flipping years ago. and I was just blown away. And then finding out about Shadow and a few other people. And I love that you bring up Amon, and it makes a lot of sense to me now how this first release from Foray has come together. With Forest, Awakening, Running, and Comfort, do those click into your mindset at all of the creation?
You know, it's funny that you mentioned those things. I'm really happy to hear you say those words. Running is the one that kind of sticks out as, I didn't think that one, but the other two, definitely. I mean, there's something about Forest that, I don't know, whenever, like, I mean, I just follow kind of almost subconsciously what I like as I'm making music. But very early in the process of making the song Forest, it felt like a song about like birth of some sort, like a very warm and comfortable, like coming into existence. And that was kind of the beginning of my vision for the EP, because there's a bit of a through line there where the EP kind of tells a bit of a story from soil to sky, where like it begins in the soil and it moves into the city, and then it, you know, there's humans, and then future is its own thing, and then galactic is sort of the final expanse. It's the final track. But Forest was always about a warm, nurturing beginning in a very natural sense. So I guess Comfort, and what was the other one that you mentioned?
Awakening.
Other than Running? Awakening, yeah. Comfort and Awakening certainly do play into that.
Oh, this is so cool, man.
I'm glad to hear you say those words.
I've missed speaking to you, man. It's been an awful long time. I appreciate this time.
Right back.
So sweet. So sweet. I actually...
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to jump ahead to the Humans track. I mean, well, to City, I wrote down vibrant, energetic, and balance, and I found it. Actually, no, let's go on City. I found it interesting. I felt like I wasn't meant to feel so balanced, and that this landscape felt very composed when it wasn't meant to. But I never felt anything that sort of threatened that initial gut emotion that I had listening to it, and it came back every time, the 4 or 5 times that I've gone through it.
Nice.
Is it meant to? Because I'm not, I don't know. Because then let me just keep speaking at you then. With Humans, I wrote down, and this is where you'll have to excuse me, but for those that live on the West Coast, there might have been something involved in this responsibly that led me to write this down a few nights ago. For Humans, I wrote down, and I have no idea why, emoji heads on real people, human Tetris. I don't know why I wrote that. I just saw this really quirky 3D abstract world that was looking at moving and utilizing an energy to get it somewhere else, which leads me to Galactic that we'll get to in future in a second. But Humans, is that what are your thoughts of my thoughts on that?
You know what? That's very true. Like, I think Humans is, I really like beautiful music. You know, I like melodies. I like to be able to sort of swim around in the sound a little bit. And so for the most part, I think that guided my intuition when I was making most of the music on this EP. And while I maintained that to some extent for myself in Humans, there's something a little bit more broken about that beat, about that song. It's like a little jagged, rough around the edges, scattered, messy. The beat, it's 4/4. It's a 4/4 beat, but it kind of doesn't feel that way if you were to try and count it out, or something right off the top. And to me, that kind of represented a reflection of like the modern human mind. It's a little out of balance. It's a wheel out of kilter. And so that one song is, to me, kind of stands out as being a bit unique among the others, in that it steps away from sort of this smooth kind of beauty that I was trying to get to with the others. I kind of embraced the brokenness of that song a little bit. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense, and I don't mean to be rude for anyone that listens to this and doesn't quite pick up on it the first few times, but for me, now I've heard that, that's why this Tetris thing came to my mind, because it's still got that 4/4, and it's an incredibly subtle array of changes that, unless you are really, really, really focused, you don't notice these different pathways that are opening up in different directions of offshoots of what you're doing around you. And that's why every time I listened to it, I was like, this is like a really messed up music video of like like emoji heads on Tetris bodies, and they're all just trying to navigate, and it's all very peaceful. It's not the sped up round, it's the start of Tetris. It's not freaking you out, but that's what just I know it seems a bit nuts, but it just kept coming back to my mind, and it's so subtle the way that you did that. So and it was on the sort of second or third listen that I was like, oh, there's way more going on here than I flipping think there is. There's way more going on here, and only you flipping know about it until you choose to share it. So I flipping love that you shared it.
Thanks. You know what? I mean, honestly, for me, this is all great stuff to hear, because it's so abstract, electronic music. Like, you can really go to all sorts of places in your imagination. But when you hear back the feedback from people who you know and respect, and they reflect back at you real elements of the emotions that you were trying to get at in this abstract form of art, it's quite satisfying. So, I mean, thank you for giving it such a detailed listen.
I go over things a lot. And moving on to Future and Galactic. So this really made me chuckle, because with Future and Galactic, I remember being 17 years old and doing A-level music tech coursework, and we were given a theme about moving to space. And it's it could be 5 to 10 minute long piece. I think mine was just around 5, because I really battled it for several months, and then I ended up deleting it all and remaking everything in the last night before. Classic student, stupid, immature stuff like, this is not good, and I've spent 6 months, delete. And just on the off chance that my music teacher James Tunstall listens to this, because we're still in touch, and James, I hope Dubai is treating you well. He just moved over there to teach, which is fascinating. But he actually,
Dubai,
because you've got, hang on, wait, no, all right, we'll get to your Dubai connect. But with him, I'll never forget, he walked me into one of the music studios and said, look, I don't know why the F you did this. You're not going to get this done in time. I've recreated the intro for you. No one ever knows about this. It's pretty much exactly what you did. I just played it in so it sounds a bit better than the shitty Cubase velocity scoring you did. And he saved my ass, in case James is still listening. But this the Future and Galactic, had me chuckling in a sort of... My cats are... Dali, I'll feed you after I've spoken to Ali, mate. It reminded me, and I'll have to send it to you, because... And I'm not embarrassed by it. I've grown up a lot since then, but...
I'd love to hear it.
The Future and Galactic, it reminded me tenfold of what I tried to create nearly 20 years ago. And then after I'd smoked a joint last night, responsibly for those that are younger listening to this in the future when it airs or it lives on the internet, I came back inside and I was like, these avatars that keep popping into my mind, now I'm picturing that we've moved to Mars, but not us, our avatar. And for some reason, in order to showcase what Mars could be like for the future of Avatar, there's my avatar unpacking a very small bag of fake hologram AI items that meant a lot to me before I left the planet. And that's where you sent me. So where on earth were you trying to go when you were making it, without having any idea where the listener might go themselves?
You know what? Very much to the places that the words that I have named them would suggest. Future, I just feel like the world is moving towards a more geometric, technicolored, like beyond technicolored, like 5K experiencing everything. Like, I mean, not just digitally, but when it comes to architecture and art and sound and entertainment and everything that we do. We're getting so much better. Everything's getting clearer and sharper and more colorful and flavorful. So that was very much the intention sort of behind Future, was to create these very rich layers of thick flavor, for lack of a better word, And again, with these, it's rare that I truly have a vision of where it's going. I just kind of have a suggestion to my subconscious that I guess I like this, and I kind of want it to go in that direction. But those were two that I really had to work on for quite a while before they sort of got to the place in the end that I felt like they were finished. There was a lot of going back and forth. I think I gave up on both of those several times. Like over the 2 years, I think I was working on each of those for about 2 years on and off. And I was just like, I don't know if I'm getting there. And then it was only near the very end where I felt like this is really something. It's grown into something that I can believe in and I can get behind. With Galactic, I don't really know what it was with that one. There's just something sort of spaceship and starry like about some of those sounds, some of those little distant bells echoing off in the distance that, I don't know, it somehow conjures up the images of neutron stars pulsing off in the distance. I don't know if neutron stars pulse, but there's something out there. There's something out there in the universe that pulses rhythmically. And these were sort of the images that were conjured when I was working on that tune. I guess there's this one point in Galactic where sort of the sound really opens up about halfway through and everything gets loud. And for whatever reason, that just felt to me like a supernova.
Yeah.
It feels like the song just sort of explodes, and then you're just left with sort of this firework display that echoes off into the end of the EP. It's all very imaginative stuff that we do when it comes to this music without words. It's almost dreamlike. Like I think it's probably that way for everybody that makes electronica or classical music, because there are no words. When you're making instrumental music, you're really just going with this picture of an experience that you only have an approximation to somewhere in your consciousness, and you're finding it in yourself and creating it sort of at the same time. And you're hoping it gets to a nice end where it's an art form that sort of stands on its own. And when it does, that truly is quite a satisfying feeling.
It
felt really nice to get there with these in particular, because, as a bit of a novice in this realm, I was wondering if I'd actually ever get to a point where I'd feel like things were finished or good enough or did the thing that I want them to do.
Well, they did, and it's just what I was saying. It's inspiring my mind to create. You've laid down the music, and the more I listen to it, the more, like, even during this conversation now, when you describe, when it comes to Galactic, that last ooh and then boo, to me, and what I was holding back on saying, and what I fleshed out more in my mind now that you've put that context there, is, to me, it almost feels like my AI has moved to Mars, he's unpacked his bags, he's had a look around, and then right at that moment in the song, oh, look, all the other people are allowed out of their pods and we're going to have a big celebration outside and success, we've all survived the first 3 hours, right? That's what it felt like to me.
Nice.
That's where it took me. Do you know anyone that can do cartoons? Shit, we got some work to do.
I know. It's funny because, as you're putting out music, you think to yourself, the best way to put out a music video with this stuff is to animate some kind of cartoon that takes the watcher on something akin to this dream that only I know.
The cool thing would be if you just basically, I don't know, just put it out to the universe and said, look, if you're at home right now and you're looking for a project, this might be quite self-serving, but here's a song, and just, if you wish to, just go ahead and make what comes to mind. If I had the skills to put together a video of all these strange Tetris emoji-faced human figures walking around on Mars, I would do it.
I'd pay good money for that. I'd pay good money to see that.
Oh, I shouldn't have started the radio station.
I'd pay good money to buy that off you.
Oh, such a wonderful... Those that's everything that I had in my mind with it. I'm really appreciative of the time for it, and I'm glad that you put this out there, because it's really effing cool. It's not even a sake of friends tapping friends on the back. This is it's provocative. It got my mind racing, and my mind is in a state of race a lot, but there's so many things going on that sometimes it can be hard to handle that one thing. But with yours, I was utterly in that world and building my world around it to solidify the appreciation I had for what was going on. And then the more and more that I listened to it, the more and more I was like, yeah, this is me. Leading up to the phone call, cooking pasta, and being like, should I tell him, Dali and Theo, I will feed you guys in a minute, I promise. I know I'm late. What time is it? I know I'm half an hour late,
Daddy's
mate.
coming, Dali.
Goodness sake. So
I'm hungry, bro.
I haven't had dinner yet, Dali. I say this every night. Anyway.
She's on a schedule.
And he knows the time. They know. And it keeps me in check a little bit too when I get stuck in my corner here, Harry Potter style, working on things.
Oh, Dolly. Like Salvador.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you said Dahlia. That's why I said she. Okay, Dolly. That's a great name for a cat.
Thank you. And the other one's called Theodore after my favorite... The other one's called it's after my favorite chipmunk, Theodore. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember them. John, I'd just like to reciprocate. Like, thank you so much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention to the music. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your friendship. Really means a lot to me, brother.
It's always here. And the wonderful thing about great friendships and good connections is that there can be a couple-year gap of conversation and you dive right in it. I honestly rudely can't recall, due to the last 9 months, when the last time it was that we saw each other. I think it was the Royal Theatre show, but I don't even know when that was. And it's just a delight to jump back into what felt like a few weeks ago, really.
Yeah, man, you make it very easy.
What I'd love to do with this...
But it has been too long since I've seen you.
You're on the mainland. I'm just not leaving the island. No disrespect to anyone. I just won't leave this sort of bubbled situation. And the other thing is, when I describe you as a clinic, you don't get to be what one would say is a walking clinic, if you don't put time into your art.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you, man.
Your friendship and support means so much to me, and your energy is incredible, man. You're such a great human to talk to. You have a great mind. You've got a great command of the language. And I love how you just freely allow yourself to express. Like you're a very clear channel of expression. It's very inspiring.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, that's in part to an awful lot of people that have helped me grow up a lot my entire adult life. And I've never felt as happy as I felt now. And this conversation is exactly the conversation I wish we could have had every year the last 10 years. But I love commercial radio, but it just does not exist in that form. And so I'm processing that. Like, thank you. That's very kind. I love you, man. I appreciate that.
Dude, there's tons of love for you. We should do this more often outside of quote unquote work.
Oh, this is not work. It's never
quote unquote.
We do need another conversation, because the next conversation we should look into the mind of where your impersonations came from, because you and I dabble in a lot of impersonations, and I think that would be a fascinating conversation all in itself. But that's for next time, I think.
I think so too. That would be really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah,
all right.
Gotta share on that.
I know that if we don't hang up the phone now, we will speak for another 45 minutes, and you have to get to dinner.
I know. It's too easy, bro.
Yeah.
It's too easy. Tons of love for you, John.
All right, mate.
Thank you again. And we'll be in touch.
Yeah, I'll speak to you soon.
Good night, brother. Bon appetit.
Bye.
Bye.